Careful.
I know.
Careful. Careful.
I know. Dude, I've been cutting my ass hair with them for the past 6 months.
A Superman movie has been in the works at Warner Brothers for years, since the Christopher Reeve movies ended.
Gentlemen, one moment. I'd like all the people back there to know that our subway system is still the safest and most reliable means of public transportation. Thank you.
The most famous and closest to being made was Superman Lives, a movie starring Nicolas Cage and directed by Tim Burton. After Superman Lives fell apart, the movie changed hands a lot, including Brett Ratner, Mick G., and J.J. Abrams, before it finally landed with Bryan Singer. Singer wasn't a huge fan of the comic book, but he was a huge fan of the 1978 Richard Donner film. He felt a Superman movie should be handled much like that. Rumor was that Bryan Singer walked around with a photo of Nicolas Cage in costume to remind people who Superman isn't.
Bryan Singer would carry around that picture of Nicolas Cage that leaked, going with it where he had the long hair. That was obviously a costume test.
What makes this interesting was that what he had was just a bad picture that leaked online. The actual finished picture of Nicolas Cage in costume looked fine, but the point was being made that Singer had a very clear vision of how this movie should be. That vision was Richard Donner's vision.
Bad vibrations?
Brandon Routh was cast as the titular Superman, beating out Henry Cavill because Singer felt he could best capture the Superman as played by Christopher Reeve. Kate Bosworth was cast as Lois Lane over Amy Adams. Superman Returns was a huge production. It seemed as though Warner Brothers went all in to ensure this movie would be the start of a new franchise. So, what went wrong?
Totally freaks me out. This whole contact lens process.
Brandon Routh's colored contacts give his eyes a very creepy vibe. It makes him look just off from normal. Maybe you could say it's because he's an alien and the eyes show he's not quite human, but isn't Clark supposed to be just an average Joe type of guy? This movie seemed to enjoy spending a lot of money computer-generating Superman. It's perhaps most noticeable right up at the end, where we get a close-up of an incredibly fake Superman. Either they couldn't call in Brandon Routh for one last shot, or he looks like a super creepy animated man.
It's real!
Totally fake.
It's fantastic!
The construction goes far beyond any known architectural theory.
So, after Lex Luthor breaks into the Fortress of Solitude, and after Superman knows Lex Luthor knows the location, Superman does nothing to lock it? No giant key or anything like that?
He just keeps the key under the doormat?
It's 1,000,000 tons of condensed dwarf star. He said only a select few can pick it up.
Just leave the door unlocked because, as we all know, Lex Luthor is a man of no resources and will surely be in prison for the rest of his days with no interest in escape.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
But, all I'm saying, they're gonna get a...
Even before you start, that was a preemptive shh. Just know I have a whole bag of shh with your name on it.
Superman is depowered and almost killed by Lex Luthor because of the island Lex made out of kryptonite. Superman escapes with the help of Lois Lane and Richard White. He charges up with the sun, then he throws himself deep into the earth. I presume, to use the Earth as a buffer to allow himself to lift up the kryptonite landmass. But soon we see kryptonite sticking through the bottom. This should be impossible. I assume the idea is that Superman is somehow pushing through it, but this isn't something that's very difficult for Superman to do. It's impossible. It's tough to get behind someone doing something impossible. A basketball player that shoots a basket from over half court is cool because it's a tough accomplishment. A basketball player that shoots a basket when no basket exists is just confusing. Not to mention all the huge story problems this opens up in the Superman mythos. Kryptonite is supposed to be the equalizer for Superman. It makes him not only human, but weaker than human. If he can somehow just push through it, then what's the point of it? His one big great weakness, and he can just shake it off with no problem. This is likely just a throwback to the first two Christopher Reeve Superman movies, where Superman is given an impossible task and does something impossible to fix it. I guess Superman should probably just be called Deus Ex Machina Man.
That's right, guys. Just keep shaking it off. It gets better. Hey, try some gum. That helps.
Last year, I did a video discussing the two different Clark Kents. One is the Silver Age version that is a disguise by Superman to appear normal. The other is the modern age version that is a man who is just trying to get by and moonlights as a superhero. If I had to guess, I'd say this movie is going for the Silver Age version, simply because of how much it draws from the original movies, but there's no evidence of that. And it's because Clark Kent has no role in this movie. He just kind of pops up occasionally. He's not a character or a presence here. He's just who Superman looks like when he's not in superhero mode. You could replace almost every scene he's in with Superman hanging outside, using his super hearing to listen to random stuff. Hell, replace Clark with a cardboard cutout of Clark Kent with a microphone. It would have the same impact.
Relax, Justin. It's just a cutout.
We're better than you, and we know it.
Lois does nothing in this movie of note other than be captured by Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor?
Lois Lane?
And raising Superman's son.
Who is that boy's father?
You could argue that her being a skilled reporter was how she was able to track down Lex Luthor to begin with, but that just leads to her and her son being captured and needing to be saved by Superman. Her learning about Lex's plan early is only to exposit the information to the audience and doesn't contribute to the story at all. You can also argue that she did fax the coordinates to the Daily Planet, but that's just weird. What super intelligent villain like Lex Luthor kidnaps a person and sits them next to a working fax machine? Does he want Lois to somehow leak this information to Superman? And if so, why? Because surely Superman will be able to figure out when he raises a huge island from the Earth.
What are you looking at?
Oh, the silent majesty of a winter's morn, the clean, cool chill of the holiday air, and an asshole in his bathrobe emptying a chemical toilet into my sewer.
Shitter was full!
Ah, yeah. You checked our shitters, honey?
Lois isn't doing things that require her unique skills to uncover. She's stumbling into the villain who's making clumsy and uncharacteristic mistakes. It doesn't make Lois stand out. It makes her just a character that does the logical thing in certain situations at certain times. Any character could do that. You don't need Lois Lane.
Taxi! Hey! Taxi!
Lois is out in the middle of the street trying to wave down a cab, but Clark uses his super whistle, I guess, to get the cab instantly? Why is the super whistle more effective than Lois Lane being in the middle of the street trying to wave down a cab? The super whistle would only be more effective if the cabbie is a dog.
You don't like it? You can kiss my furry little butt.
It's clear clear from the story and interviews with the filmmakers, no one was completely sure what this movie was.
Superman's been around for 50 years. You know, there are so many different incarnations of Superman. He's done everything. They've rewritten the mythology a dozen times. The suit has been 100 different ways.
All of our conversations, Bryan and I, have been about, we don't want to do something that's already been done, and we want to do it differently.
So we're going back to Superman 1 as our kind of canon. Dick Donner shot a very realistic, very natural movie.
The general consensus seems to be that this is a sequel to Superman 2.
Well, those people are crazy.
But if this is intended as a sequel, then why does the story mirror that of Superman 1978 so damn closely?
I certainly hope this little incident hasn't put you off flying.
Statistically speaking,
of course,
still the safest way to travel.
Still the safest way to travel.
Hell, the details are different, but Lex's plan is pretty identical to his plan in 78.
You're building an island?
You're not seeing the big picture here, Miss Lane. Let me enlarge it for you. Not just an island, an entirely new continent. An extinct world, reborn on our own.
Why?
Land, Miss Lane. I mean, Kitty, what did my father used to say to me?
You're losing your hair?
He said, you can print money, manufacture diamonds, and people are a dime a dozen, but they'll always need land. It's the one thing they're not making any more of.
Everything west of this line is the richest, most expensive real estate in the world. Everything on this side of the line is just hundreds and hundreds of miles of worthless desert land, which just so happens to be owned by Lex Luthor. Now, call me foolish, call me irresponsible. It occurs to me that a 500 megaton bomb planted at just a proper point would
destroy most of California. Millions of innocent people would be killed. The West Coast, as we know it, would
fall into the sea. Bye-bye, California. Hello, new West Coast, my West Coast.
But if this is a sequel, what year does it take place in? Is the idea that this movie takes place in 2006, which would match the technology we see? But since there's a 5-year gap that Superman's gone for, do we assume that Superman 2 now takes place circa 2000? But then we have the kryptonite, which appears to have been discovered in 1978, the year of the first movie. According to Bryan Singer, this is a reboot, not a sequel, but can be taken as a sequel. What the fuck does that mean? You can't be vague like that. You have to commit. Is this a sequel or its own thing? So much of this doesn't match up to the first two, but so much of it does. You can't just pick and choose what aspects are a sequel and what aren't. Otherwise, you end up with weird shit like Superman's kid. An interesting idea that they don't explore nearly enough, but maybe they don't because in Superman 2, Lois does sleep with Superman, but then he gave her an amnesia kiss, which I have a rant about that I'll save for when I cover that movie. Lois doesn't seem to know that Superman is Clark here.
Lois, how tall would you say Clark is?
About 6'3", 6'4".
About 200, 215 pounds?
A mild-mannered reporter? Really a superhero? Clark, please.
So, Lois clearly has Superman's kid, but she also doesn't appear to have any memory of being with Superman. What does she think happened?
It was an accident, right? You tripped, slipped on the floor, and accidentally stuck your dick in my wife.
Odds are, amnesia kiss is not on her list of possibilities. Being Cosby seems like a far more likely scenario.
If you know you're not supposed to do something, and you do it, and then people say, why did you do it? You say, I don't know.
So does Lois think that Superman raped her? Hell, you could say he kind of did. He slept with her without her knowledge. Technically, she knew at the time, but he wiped those memories. Shit like this is why Singer needs to fully commit to whether this is a sequel. Does Superman need to fess up to Lois and tell her exactly what happened? Or was it a completely different scenario where she slept with Superman without learning his secret identity? We need to know, is Superman a raper, or just a jerk who knocked up Lois and stranded her on Earth while he went on a space adventure? On a side note, this is a Blu-ray rip of this movie. I'm not sure if it's a crappy Blu-ray transfer or if the film wasn't done in a very high quality, but either way, the current quality of this movie on Blu-ray is really underwhelming. What is there to say about this movie? Dull is the word that comes to my mind. Look at the first half hour. Superman returns, Lex gets his fortune back, Lex farts around with crystals, Clark returns, and that's about it. 30 minutes of this 2.5-hour movie, and almost nothing happens. Surely Singer was trying to copy the slower feel of the Donner film, but that movie still had events happening. There's a whole Krypton scene where Jor-El is trying to help his people save the planet. We have Clark growing up in Kansas and learning who he is and finally choosing his path and becoming Superman. Sure, the pace is slow, but it's interesting. This movie is not. The only real thing that keeps this movie from becoming dreadfully boring is Kevin Spacey, who is the best Lex Luthor we've ever had.
No, the other thing. Come on, I know it's just dangling out the tip of your tongue. Let me hear it just once, please.
Superman will never...
Wrong!
Sure, Gene Hackman was great, but he didn't have the same menace.
Don't touch that. I told you.
And Jesse Eisenberg doesn't count because he wasn't really Lex Luthor, just Jokerish.
You can call me whatever you like. Take a bucket of piss and call it Granny's peach tea.
I think a lot of the pacing issues come from the fact that no one seems certain about what movie they were making. The best way to point this out is how they used Marlon Brando footage for Jor-El. Yet Kate Bosworth in her early 20s is somehow supposed to be 5 years older than Margot Kidder, who was in her early 30s in Superman 2? There is no real internal logic to this movie, and it shows. One might be able to make the argument that this movie is as good as it could be with this logical inconsistency. That might be true, and there are parts of this movie that are fine. I love the bit with Superman hovering over Earth listening for crime. I think Brandon Routh does a solid job. No Christopher Reeve, but not bad either. Sam Huntington makes a great Jimmy Olsen, and Frank Langella is always great, period.
Great Caesar's ghost.
It's not completely awful by any means, but that doesn't make this movie good. I didn't realize I'd be tackling the lesser superhero movies of Bryan Singer back to back. But here we are. Bryan Singer is serviceable as a director. He has some cool ideas that pop up here and there throughout his movies. Sometimes it works out and we get X2 or X-Men Days of Future Past. He is capable of making some damn good movies. Nothing great, but damn good. This isn't one of them. I give it a 4 out of 10.
We are grateful for your protection of Mariko, but there is one more sacrifice you must make for her family.
Go fuck yourself, pretty boy.
Hey, if you like this video, please make sure to hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe. That helps me out a lot. And if you really love this video, consider visiting my Patreon page.